Hey guys, what's going on? Shaw here, and today in this video we're going to actually take a look at the back half of Temple and break down how my group really handles the trash between third boss and the last boss, because when I posted my guide at the start of the season, unfortunately they Blizzard, between beta testing, which is where the footage was from, has actually added trash pulls that I was unaware of. Now, there could have been some speculation, and definitely in hindsight, I should have had something in mind, because the count on both Keystone Guru for a little bit, as well as in Mythic Dungeon Tools, were both off by 20%. And that was really strange, but we didn't really know why. And obviously, looking more into it, the way that they pull their data from Warcraft logs and how the count is actually generated in-game, it would make sense that there were just missing mobs from the table. So this was actually a Temple 19 that I ran pretty much this week. I thought we handled the back half pretty well, despite the key being pretty poor. You can already see here, we have a Holy Priest in Spirit, we have a dead Windwalker, and we have 18 deaths on the board. So pretty rough run. This is definitely not going to be timed, but I think the back half of the dungeon we executed fairly well, and I want to break down how we pull this, because in some of the pugs that I've been doing on some of my DPS and healer classes, the way that some tanks and groups handle this back half is just really clunky and mostly ends in wipes or deaths, or you have to commit lust to it. So let's dive in. So I'm also doing this a little differently. I'm using Microsoft's recording software to draw. Hopefully I can kind of lay some stuff out for you guys, but it might, we'll see. I might have to play with it in post-production. All right, so Lou Flameheart just went down, and there are basically 4 pulls you'll need to complete before you can take on the Shaw of Doubt, which I think is good. What a lot of groups have been doing is saving hero for some of this trash. It really depends on your group and when you want to commit lust. But we're going to just handle this first pack by itself. There is 3 mobs in this. I did talk about this in my guide. This pack did exist, just none of the trash after this point existed. So the priority here is really up to you. I think the Mistweaver poses much more of a threat with Defiling Mist channel, as well as the Curse. The touch of karma that it puts out, you can see it on our priest there, that was able to be cleared. And then but my group somehow happened to zug down the water speaker first, but we typically make sure that we're trying to prioritize the defilers whenever we can, the Mistweavers. So I actually pull this right side first, because it's much easier to get this group out of the room, because there's only one caster, which is the Mistweaver. The other 2 guardians only cast this leg sweep as well as the Rising Sun kick cast, so it's fairly easy to move them. Another reason we're moving out, I mean, obviously Sanguine, but moving them out of this room, just make sure that your group's not pulling. I've seen groups go to the left first and accidentally, step into one of the other packs in this room. It's just really tight in there. And I've seen it happen on this side as well. So that's why you see me kind of dragging them back out into this hallway or back into the courtyard here. You're seeing me kite here, not because the mobs are necessarily dangerous, but I'm trying to split their Sanguines like that, as you see on the ground. What a lot of tanks don't do is they don't start kiting until Sanguine already drops. Now, this is a week where a tank might lose a good bit of damage, but if you start kiting way earlier, when mobs are typically around, it depends on the key level, but I would say between 5 and 10%, you'll typically get a much better split of Sanguine and much less Sanguine healing overall. So I'll have to do a Sanguine guide maybe in the future. Again, in this pull, we are just trying to nuke down this Mistweaver because of that touch of karma. We just don't run a Curse Dispel. Now, a lot of groups that have a Druid in their group or a Shaman or something like that, which have been pretty popular this season so far, you don't have to target the Mistweaver, but this touch of karma that they put out, or touch of ruin, is just super nasty. All right, so that pack goes down. We had some CDs there. We definitely had Wreck, for example. Can I draw on this? Oh, I can. Okay, cool. That's why we're doing this. All right. So right now, this is the scary pull. This is what a lot of groups save lust for. You can see that we did not. But there are 4 really dangerous mobs, which is funny because the largest mob in here is not dangerous to the tank. I see a lot of groups try to blow this guy up. This is not what's killing your tank, by the way. This little guy right here, the tiniest guy in the pool, is the one that's nuking your tank. And that spell is called Haunting Gaze. Now, there's a few ways to handle this pull. In the past, on some fortified weeks, especially when you have a little less gear, what you can do is you can CC one of these out. So in this group, for example, we have Frozen Trap, and we also have Paralysis. So if we really wanted to, I can just say, hey, Windwalker, can you Paralysis Star for me? Or can you Paralysis Skull? And leave those 2 alone. Now, we don't do that in this instance. We're going to actually pull all 5, and I'm going to talk about what things I'm paying attention to. Now, obviously, I'm playing a warrior. Warriors are a little bit more sturdy in this kind of situation because we have things like Spell Reflect, Spell Block. They're more likely to shout Last Stand, Final Stand, or not Final Stand, Shield Wall, Commanding Shout, and we have a very quick way to get away through Heroic Leap, which you're going to see me use pretty much all of that going into this pull. Now, some other tanks, it really depends on what kind of cooldowns you have. I know if you commit any kind of big CD here, so for example, Guardian Druids with Incarn, making sure you have Survival Instincts, Rage of the Sleeper, you'll be fine there. If you're a Demon Hunter with Metamorphosis, you'll be fine. If you don't have meta, you might fall over really quickly. I don't know how Brewmaster's monks are going to live this outside of having like your Cobalt Ring with like double defensive trinkets. Now, luckily, Brewmasters have a very easy way to get away from this pull as well, so it really depends on the tank, but again, talking this from a warrior's perspective. All right, so let's dive into the pull here. I am marking these, actually remarking, I guess. So I'm just kind of waiting to make sure everyone, we already know we're failing the key, so we're in no rush here. We've already talked about it in Discord. So I'm gonna actually start here. As you notice, I started with Commanding Shout. And as soon as I connected, I Demoralizing Shout while in defensive stance. And I have Shield Block up right here on this bar. So we have just drew like a penis. We basically 3 relatively minor defensives starting this encounter. And the big things that we're looking out for is going to be the Haunting Glaze cast, as well as multiple Dark Claw casts from these fellows here. So what I'm gonna basically do is I'm gonna back up, and my goal is to live as long as possible until the first set of Shaws spawn. You can see I dipped really low, and as I dip low, I'm gonna Last Stand here. Last Stand is gonna increase my max health as well as heal me a fair bit, and then I'm gonna go for the Impending Victory. I don't track it in my weak aura, but you'll see it down here. I smack that Impending Victory, and that put me up at 50k HPS. So we're straight vibing. Now, the only thing that the DPS need to really pay attention to in this pull are the swirls that spawn on the ground, as well as this frontal. The tank, normally this will not target the tank. There is a chance, but most likely it won't. You want to make sure you're avoiding this as well, but it's mostly a DPS thing because the only thing that matters for you is making sure you're kiting, getting yourself in a good position, avoiding swirls, and getting ready to get out as quickly as you can. So I have block up as well because of the Last Stand talent, as well as just shield block in general. Now these Shaws spawn, so I have Ravager down. Ravager's also going to give me a ton of rage for Ignore Pain to just basically spam it as often as I can. Pretty much I am now only focusing on staying alive. The reason we're also trying to survive until these first set of Shaws spawn, because they will deal damage to enemies, or I guess their enemies, your allies, if they pull threat. Luckily, I do have an MD in the group, and he can MD me at any point to misdirect threat back to me. But as soon as the first set of Shaw spawn, I want to make sure I'm getting and establishing enough threat, so I'm doing that with Ravager and Shockwave. And then I am pretty much going to just bounce. I'm out. I can see that Skull is at 27%, and Star is at, oh, I can't draw there, is at 7%. So I'm ready to bounce, because we know that Sanguine's coming, these mobs are about to die, and I need to get out so I don't get smacked by Dark Claws. So you'll notice here as I'm starting to kind of inch away, we get a Ring of Peace just to make sure Sanguine doesn't go out on the group, which I think was a little early if I remember correctly. And then I'm just leaping. You can see me kiting here. I'm just getting out. And the reason for this is because all I have left is Wall. I do have Demo Shout back up, which is good. And I have Stormbolt if I needed to stop something. But that's it. And I want to make sure that the mobs are coming far enough from Sanguine that they're not going to get any Sanguine healing. You can watch down here on the HPS meters. You'll see that Sanguine, I don't think exists too much on this pull. I'm just directing my group, like, watch out for flames. There are some kind of like free ranging Shaws over here that I'm just keeping an eye on. One I think is hitting our warrior and our priest. I taunt it. And now I'm just kind of kiting away to try to create distance between these low doubts and the infestor. And luckily we were able to keep him out, but now the biggest problem here is threat. So I have Shockwave back up, and I'm trying to figure out a way to establish threat. Now, something that I could have done here is I should have probably swapped to Battle Stance to maybe get a little bit extra damage here. And the other thing that's scary about doing this strat is you just need to be mindful of it, is when these Shaws die, they will blow up and do a ton of damage. So we luckily have another group defensive through Nama's Shout that we can use when these things get a little lower. And now we're just like chilling with the infestor. So that's kind of the general strat that my group uses for this pull. And regardless of it being Sanguine week or not, on fortified weeks, getting out is just really, really important. But that's pretty much it. Now, unfortunately, this was a failed key. We failed it before. Like, we had, I think, 2 full group wipes before the first boss. And then we had another full group wipe at some point in here. I don't remember where. I think it was around the second boss area. We just like weren't playing well. And then we had 2 deaths on this boss here, just like a very messy dungeon. But that's pretty much it. That's how I would handle this last room. Now, again, when it comes to like different tanks, you got to get a little more creative because obviously warriors are extremely tanky. But I hope that helps. I hope that clarifies a little bit. I'm sorry it wasn't in the video. It kind of came out of left field, at least for me. I didn't expect them to just add trash between beta because we, beta tested for months and then they made this kind of like random change, which I think was a fair change. The timer was extremely free on this key on beta, and it felt really weird going from like 3rd boss to 4th boss with only 1 trash pull that was not dangerous whatsoever. So now there's kind of like this dangerous in-between trash that you have to be very like cognizant of. Anyways, I hope you guys enjoyed this little breakdown. Good luck in your keys for the rest of the week and going into the next, and hope you guys had a happy new year, and I'll catch you all in the next one. Peace.